Hello and welcome to Searching for Service, brought to you by Rotary District 5950. I'm your host, Kelly Kirk.
We are her co-hosts, Joe Kirk
and Chad Larson.
I was like, where are you going with this? Before we share who our guest is for today's episode, Joe's going to remind us of our show's purpose.
Yeah, here at Searching for Service, we are committed to highlighting and uniting servants through stories of service. And what we mean by that is we have great people on. They tell a lot of great stories, a lot of great opportunities to serve, get excited. And we don't really care how you serve as long as you serve.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we think Rotary is the best vehicle for that. But, get out there and serve.
Yeah. And so speaking of servants of service, we had Natasha Grad on, and she is the president of Rotaract Club for Dakota County Technical College, right?
Yep.
Yeah, she was great. Super
Really
inspiring.
Good about mental health and her journey.
Yeah. So stay tuned.
Yep. You guys will enjoy it.
I'm Kelly Kirk.
I'm Joe Kirk.
And I'm Chad Larson.
We'll be back. Hello and welcome back to Searching for Service, brought to you by Rotary District 5950. I'm Kelly Kirk.
I'm Joe Kirk.
And I'm Chad Larson.
And before we introduce our in-person guest, Chad is going to remind us of our show's sponsor.
Well, we want to thank Russell Hampton for sponsoring us. They are the #1 printer for Rotary in the country. You can check out, if you're watching, some of the swag they have printed for us. We got mugs, cutting board, hat, you name it.
Pretty much anything you could slap your logo on.
Or Rotaries, they're there for you. So look them up at russellhampton.com.
And we're always in the market for additional sponsors for the show. So if the show compels you to do so, reach out to us at searchingforserviceshow@gmail.com.
There you go.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Well, it's always nice to have a guest in person here at the studio. So we want to welcome Natasha Grad. She is the president of the Rotaract Club for Dakota County Technical College. Welcome.
Yeah. Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. This is cool in person as well. So
yeah, we are happy to have you. So really, we want our listeners to have the opportunity to get to know you as a guest. So I'm going to ask the first question. I usually do. Where are you from?
So I'm actually from Eagan, Minnesota.
Okay.
Grew up there, went to Eagan High School, and then actually graduated from a cool school that's on the Minnesota Zoo property. If you've ever heard of it, it's called the School of Environmental Studies. Cool. And it's focused just on the environment, education-wise. So
clever name then.
Yeah, it fits very well. I
Nice.
didn't have to do regular gym. I got scuba certified as a gym credit. And I also went up to the Boundary Waters in the middle of February, which was actually really cool.
Okay.
And also May.
And cold.
It was cold, but it was the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced.
Really?
It was totally worth it.
Cool.
Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't have to do track.
Okay.
I went on cool adventures instead for my gym credits.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's fascinating and something I've never heard of that before. So.
They didn't have that in Wisconsin?
Oh no. I don't believe so. Or maybe they did and I just wasn't.
You didn't have like the couple dozen people that just showed up at graduation. You're like, I've never seen you before. Because did you graduate technically from Eagan?
Yeah, so Eagan was my home high school, but I didn't walk at Eagan.
Yeah.
I just didn't really feel connected at the time to that school. And so I walked with SES, it's called, or SESers. And it's really cool because we actually have our graduation at the Minnesota Zoo and we walk across the stage barefoot. So I graduated barefoot, connected to the earth. And it was a really nice experience. I think there was only like 168 kids.
Only?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of people listening to this that would go. Like I graduated with 17 people in my class.
My graduating class.
Yeah, my graduating class wasn't much bigger than that.
It was a school that only juniors and seniors were at. And it was 200 kids per year. So they could only hold 400 max. It was
cool.
Kind of intense to get into, but
a lot smaller than Eagan.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think Eagan graduated with like over 500 students. So
what drove you to do that school alternative versus just going through the regular high school?
So I had a few mental health problems or issues at the school, and actually ended up having to kind of drop out because of that.
Sure.
And I don't know, just the learning style was different. I was interested in the environment. I felt more connected to the environment. They went outside. I
Yeah.
wasn't stuck inside of a building for 8 hours.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just really passionate. And actually, I ended up gaining a passion for glacier ice. And I originally wanted to pursue an environmental science degree.
Okay.
And study just glacier ice because they had a program where you'd go up to the Arctic for 6 weeks.
Wow.
And since I'm scuba certified,
Yeah.
I'd be able to like collect ice samples and scuba dive in the Arctic. And then I was going to minor in photography.
Okay.
But you know, there's no job security in that right now.
Yeah.
So.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I've
It
never,
is.
like,
I'm still scuba diving in the Arctic. It's
Yeah.
got me.
Well, I
yeah.
think what's
Not on the
really
bucket list,
cool
Chad?
about it, Natasha, is that
I don't know.
it's kind of shedding light to the fact that there's always alternative
Mhm.
options.
Yeah,
No
for
matter
sure.
what, you can always pivot one way or the other, and there's going to be something for you to do.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I
that's
think
really-
we'll get into
that's really
more
cool.
of the mental health aspects a little
Yeah.
bit later in the interview, but what kind of drove you to explore that? Like, I find this kind of actually really fascinating
Like
to talk about.
explore the SES school.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just the way they did everything. So instead of like having 50-minute period classes, they're like 3 hours. And you're
Okay.
in a room with 100 students. And it was more
Hmm.
like college. So we
Mhm.
didn't have to like raise our hand to go to the bathroom. It was
Yeah.
more of a lecture based, and it was more on philosophical types of education. Like my whole senior year was based on the question, how then shall we live?
Mm.
And that was my final. You know, I ended up having to write a toxicology report that was like 44 pages long on DDT and infertility. I had to do like a project where it would last longer than me,
Mhm.
and kind of like an end of the year project, which I did reverse graffiti, which is really cool if you've ever
Hmm.
heard about it.
No.
I think
Tell
I
us
have,
more.
but yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so-
Let's just pivot into that.
Sure. So reverse graffiti is really cool. And sometimes it actually looks like actual graffiti. And so cities will paint over it, which is kind of ironic.
Mhm.
But what happens is they take a stencil and they power wash inside the stencil and then remove it from the wall or the sidewalk or whatever. And it leaves an image because they cleaned off the
Mm.
dirt, the grime that was collected over the years.
Okay.
So not only does it show how dirty the world is
Yeah.
from us, but it
Yeah.
also it's a way to do artwork and kind of do something that's not as invasive with paint. They also do it with like a mixture of sometimes you'll see like murals done where it'll be greenery and almost looks like a plant is growing on a wall. They'll use that as well as like a paste to the wall, and create an image that way. So yeah, that was what that project was on. And then we had to write an ethics paper that we wrote when we first got there, and then write a reflection on that ethics paper and see how our ethics changed environmentally. Yeah, it was really impactful.
I love the thinking behind it.
Yeah.
It requires you to challenge your own beliefs and the
Yeah.
way that you the way that you perceive the world, and that
Well,
there's
and
more than one option. And
we covered challenging topics that you wouldn't see in a normal high school. I mean, I had to study different religions when we had conversations about different religions and how that environmentally impacts everybody.
Mhm.
We talked about, the overpopulation of the world and, what should we do about that? What is ethically correct in order to do population control, and looked at all the history of that. And
That's fascinating.
yeah, so you have these, 17, 18-year-olds discussing these really intense, high topic
Mhm.
questions. And I just feel like it really propelled me to kind of think larger than just my little community, and really pushed me to be a little bit farther and say, hey, look I can do this. Like, what's stopping me?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I am a little like mind blown right now, to
Yeah,
be honest
yeah.
with you. So it's
Sorry,
kind
kind
of
of a little different direction.
no,
but-
no, it's
No,
okay.
this is
It's
the
challenging
cool
my
thing about
like
the
thought
show. We go
process,
wherever we want.
right?
Yeah.
It's challenging my thought process, and since like I'm pretty far removed from the high school scene, but you still have the narrative that's in place on like this and then this and then this.
Yeah,
and
what
then
you're
this.
supposed to do, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, well, while everyone was learning, American history and stuff, I was learning how to survive in the winter. I was
Yeah.
learning how to build fires, build shelter, how to identify plants,
So when the
animals.
zombie apocalypse comes, we're calling
Give me a
We
call.
need to connect with you. Yeah.
We're gonna go scuba
We
diving
need
with
to become your best friend. Yes.
We will live underwater. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know when we talked off air, so you also have, for most of your life, participated in pageants, right?
Yeah, I have. I've been doing pageants for over 15 years,
Cool.
which is really cool. And I'm not the stereotypical pageant person, as I have a huge tomboy side to me, which is why I was put into pageantry. In my own personal life, like I drive a really cool sports car.
Nice.
It's a Nissan 350Z convertible, 6-speed.
Okay.
I've got a couple motorcycles, just kind of like those stereotypical things you would not
I'm not
imagine.
gonna-
One's not enough
A
for
pet,
you.
no.
Yeah.
I have like a CBR sports bike, but then I also have a Honda Grom, which is kind of more like a little pit bike.
Okay.
It's just kind of fun to.
For our listeners who
Yeah.
are not actually like here in studio to physically see Natasha, when she walked in, my first thing that I noticed were her shoes, which are high heels and they're sparkly. So when you're hearing all of this, it's like it challenges
And
again.
they're pink. And I drove here. I just want everyone to know I drove stick here in these shoes. So it is possible.
That's awesome. It's awesome. Okay, but so back to the pageant.
Yeah.
Pageantry.
When I was a child growing up, I was a huge tomboy. And my grandmother, bless her heart, was like, Natasha, you need to start acting more ladylike. You're getting older, I'm going into middle school. You need to start, acting like a lady. You're going to be a young woman soon. We need to start working on your manners. And so my grandmother signed me up for the local Miss Egan pageant. Was the
Nice.
first time I was wearing heels, first time in really a dress. I tripped going up the stairs onto the stage.
My
Like it
gosh.
was like the worst thing I could think of. I was really shy. I never really interacted with other women in my life because it just made me uncomfortable for some reason. I guess maybe I wasn't into the same things they were. I tended to hang out with more men, more boys. And and so I did the whole program, which actually was really funny, and I didn't realize until I started doing Rotaract and Rotary events, that the Egan Rotary was actually part of a sponsor for Miss Egan back when I originally did the pageant.
Interesting.
Yeah, crazy how life does that.
Yeah. Coming full circle at you.
Yeah, so I ended up winning the queen title for my age division. Don't know how that happened. And then all of a sudden, my next year was a whirlwind of going to multiple different events around the Twin Cities metro, parades, coronations, volunteer events. I got to meet so many people. It forced me to, go up to a strange group of women, young girls, and introduce myself and start a conversation. So it really forced me to get out of my shell and start to be a little bit more not shy and maybe a little bit more ladylike. And it was a great experience. I kind of have a funny story with that. So I don't know why. They gave us all white dresses, evening gowns. And I love food. And so there would always be food.
I'm like, I know where this is going.
There would always be food at these coronation events, and like the worst type of food. I'm talking like little
spaghetti
desserts.
and
And I'm like, I always kept spilling everything. So my director actually ended up making me a bib that we would carry around with us. So whenever we'd eat somewhere or whatever, I would have my royal bib on
Love it.
to cover the white dress. And I never wore a white dress again
My
for that
gosh.
reason. But yeah, so I ended up
I don't wear
falling.
white shirts either.
You're so funny.
I don't.
Anyways, proceed.
So I ended up falling in love with the year of service that comes with the crown.
Okay.
And I was hooked after that. I tortured myself and put myself through the pageant portion in order to get that year of service. And throughout the years, I kept doing it. I ended up being Miss Egan my senior year of high school, which was a really cool experience. And then afterwards, I was like, what's next? And a lot of the ambassador programs around here, they kind of end once you're done with your, grade school, high school. And I didn't know where to go. And so I found out that there's actually state and national pageants out there. So I was like, you know what? If we're going to do this, let's do this, right? So I went the state national route. And after I made that decision, I did it in the honor of my grandmother. So now I always feel like she's on stage with me and probably
That's so
very proud to
wonderful.
see how much more ladylike I am. not fully,
Though
but
you're keeping those ties
yeah,
to the
keeping
tomboy.
those
I
ties.
love
I can
it.
never get rid of it. But yeah,
Go
so
out on stage in your Honda.
Yeah. Yep.
it's definitely a talking
She's
point.
representing. She's representing.
But
Yep.
because of that, I've held 5 Miss Minnesota titles. I've held 2 national titles. The most recent, I was the national Miss for American Royal Beauties for 2022. And having those opportunities led me to creating a platform of something I'm very passionate about, which is helping to educate and end the stigma against severe mental illness.
Mm.
So that's been a very big passion of mine, and that's something that I have dedicated my life to for the past 15 years. And it's something
Okay.
I'm going to be continuing now throughout my life. And it was really cool having that national title because, you're able to do this at a national level. You're able to talk to people nationally, really gain
Mhm.
awareness on an issue like that.
Okay. So I'm going to just unpack some of this
Yeah.
stuff here. First, I want to ask the question, where is this passion deriving from?
Yeah. So the passion for my platform has to do with kind of a personal story to mine. So I've struggled with mental health my entire life.
Okay.
It's something that wasn't picked up necessarily quick enough, and people around me didn't notice. And so I started self-harming at a young
Mhm.
age. And after I had my first friend die by suicide my freshman year of high school, beginning of my freshman year, that's when I started to take a turn of really great depression. It was also around the time my grandmother passed away, who I was really close to. And, through that time, I was self harming and nobody noticed.
Mhm.
Nobody noticed the signs. And so when at school, they brought us into a room and was like, hey, if you are feeling this way, come talk to a counselor. And so I did. And the counselor didn't take my message as serious as it should have been, and had informed my parents that it was just for attention,
Mm.
which led me to having my own first attempt my
Mm.
sophomore year of high school.
Okay.
And that led me into being hospitalized for a little bit, trying to come back into school, and just wasn't able to do it with all the social. I was bullied my entire life, and
Yeah.
so being around those people and kind of in that same environment where I associated all these negative emotions just made it really difficult to cope. So I ended up having to drop out of high school, which was really detrimental to me because education is a huge thing for me. And with my mental illness declining, I was going from an A student to failing all of my classes. So there were
Wow.
signs and symptoms out there, but at the time, it wasn't really talked about.
No.
People
Mhm.
didn't really know. I'm a little bit older. I graduated high school in 2013. So, this is happening 2009, 2010.
Mhm.
Um, my parents grew up in an era where mental health wasn't really talked about.
Yeah.
It was kind of brushed under the table. We deal with our issues ourselves
Yeah.
and we don't
Yeah.
talk about it. And so yeah, after my first attempt, it kind of spooked my parents a bit.
All of a sudden it resonated a little bit
Yes,
more.
like, where did this come from?
Woke
And
them up.
Mhm.
yeah, and so then it led to a really long recovery, where I was originally diagnosed with depression and anxiety and was told that I'll grow out of it.
Hmm.
So that gave me hope, like, hey, I'm gonna become an adult, everything's gonna be fine, I'm gonna be normal, it's
Yeah.
fine. But at the time, I'm wondering, okay, like, why am I having these thoughts? Why am I wanting to hurt myself? Why, like, why do I hear things? Why do I have
Yeah.
auditory hallucinations? Like, what is going on? It can't just be depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
And so then I had my second attempt, my junior year of high school, and ended up for a little bit leaving SES and going to a special school for therapy. There was therapy for most of the day, and then school. Well, that kind of came to bite me in the butt later because I was going to an environmental school, and
Yeah.
they did not know how to teach that.
Yeah.
So I ended up having to do night school my senior year of high school.
Okay.
And thankfully, I was able to graduate on time. Took a
Wow.
lot of work from my
Yeah.
end, but I was determined and I did it. Um, and then I had my third attempt when I was about 20. And that's when I finally got put into the adult system, right?
Mm.
Because during this time, my mom's even asking the doctors, like, what can we do for her to stop, like, cutting herself? What can we do for her to stop harming herself? And they just look at me and say, well, just don't cut. what are you gonna like? There's nothing you can do with that. And so
Mm.
I finally got into an adult program where they looked at me and said, "You don't have depression." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Obviously, I have depression. Like,
Yeah.
I've attempted suicide. What are you talking about? And I was then properly diagnosed with what I have now and was informed that I have what's called borderline personality disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have bipolar disorder,
Okay.
CPTSD, and anxiety. And then they
Okay.
threw in seasonal depression because, we live in Minnesota. So, and when I got that,
Just to feel
Yeah.
welcomed with
yeah, of
everybody
Yeah.
else,
course,
right?
Yeah.
it's everyone else here has it. It was just kind
Yeah.
of thrown in at the end, just a little kick. Yeah, so it was kind of like, what is this? I've heard of bipolar, but I had a stigma against it, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, those people are scary. They're violent. Nobody wants to be with those people. And
Mhm.
what is this borderline personality disorder? What is BPD? So I did my own research, right?
Mhm.
Bad mistake. Should have never done that. And I just saw all this negative stuff online, this very
Mm.
big stigma around people, especially with borderline. And borderline ended up being kind of like the main mental illness that shows itself more in my life.
Mhm.
I got diagnosed with bipolar because I experience intense mania and depressive episodes.
Mhm.
And so I was like, okay, well, the things that people are saying is, you can't love somebody with BPD. They're very draining. They're just gonna destroy your life and kick you to the curb. And the things I was reading, it was like making me feel like I'm unlovable, or
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to accomplish anything in my life. And I looked at my life and said, well, that's not possible. Like, look at everything I've been doing so far,
Yeah.
and so I wanted to change the stigma, right? I wanted to educate people. And before this, my platform was just strictly about mental health, like raising awareness. I've lost multiple friends to suicide. Most recently, just this past December, I ended up having a
Wow.
friend die by suicide. So it's a very continuous thing, and not only my life but other people. Just being in a room of strangers, at least one person has known somebody or has
Mhm.
been associated with someone who has died by suicide.
Yeah.
And so originally it was just to get that message out there. But now with my new diagnosis, I added to end the stigma against severe mental illness, because, I started to be more open with people about it and had lost some friends,
Yeah.
had lost some people in my lives because of my diagnosis.
Sure.
And it led into a lot of therapy. I tried to do certain routes, certain medication. It's very difficult to figure out what medication works, and
The
I'm
balance, I'm sure it can
yes,
be
and
very
I'm
challenging.
still even struggling with medication, and trying to be on it for a long enough time for it to actually make effect. And
Mhm.
it's called med management. Yeah, and so it's just been kind of a crazy journey. But now, even though I still struggle, right? I still sometimes have those thoughts.
Mhm.
I still sometimes do harm myself. Not that I want to, but sometimes you slip up. It's kind of like an addiction.
Yeah.
It happens. I just have to be gentle with myself, and I make sure I have the resources around me. I'm in therapy twice a week. I do a group dialect behavioral therapy on Mondays, and then I see an individual therapist on Wednesdays, and also have the support and kind of that team and a safety plan in place for when I am having like what I call an episode, or I'm
Mhm.
not, really there. I'm when that happens, your mind kind of goes to a different
Mhm.
area and you're not
Yeah.
yourself. And I sometimes don't even remember what happened.
Sure.
So
Something I want to hit on
yeah.
is when you were telling your story here, something that you said that really stuck with me was when you were able to almost like watch yourself and then go, "Oh, that's not and you kind of contextualized it with a lot of the stigma that you saw,
Hmm.
doing your own research, and you were like, "Well, that's not my life. That's
Yeah.
that's not how did you get there?" Because I
Yeah.
could see it so easily being like, "See,
Yeah.
see, this is why I'm
Yeah.
feeling all of this. Of course, I can't be anything." But like, what
Mhm.
got you to where you could
Overcome.
look at your situation from an objective standpoint instead of being so locked into it? Because that's got to be something that is difficult to
It
do.
is,
Sure.
and it's still something I struggle with every day.
Mhm.
And I'm not quite sure where it came from. I think it was more I looked at myself, and I'm a very kind person. I'm a very giving person. I love others first before myself.
Mhm.
My mom raised me to be very kind. Growing up, my mom was disabled. And so I was already introduced to that world, and, be nice to people. You don't know what they're going through. You
Mhm.
don't know what their life is like. And so I was always wanting to help other people. I was always, volunteerism was a very big thing for me. And after joining pageants and seeing like the difference I can make in my community, even as like a 12, 13-year-old girl, it was just something that I kind of held on to and grasped and said, hey, like, I'm extremely kind to people. I'm very nice. I love people, and I do all this volunteer work. I do make the world a better place
Yeah.
somehow, so I can't be all bad.
Interesting.
Yeah. Were you going to ask a question,
No.
Chad? Okay. So our current Rotary International president, Gordon,
Hmm.
are you aware of what his like mission is?
I am not. No.
So
I hate to say that since
Mental
I'm
mental
on.
health
it is
one of
around
Really?
mental
yeah.
health.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
So I mean, if you haven't learned a little bit about that, it certainly is a great opportunity to just kind of help connect the dots.
Yeah.
So I guess it actually answers my question if that was some sort of like tie to that as well.
Oh,
But
like why I
yeah,
should join Rotary
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Rotaract?
Mhm.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
want me to explain why I joined?
Of
Yeah,
course.
that'd be great.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
Because obviously it's not that.
No, that just happens to be a coincidence, actually, which is
Okay.
really great to hear and see that other organizations have that same passion, or other people have that same drive and passion that I do. Because what I've done on my own has been kind of difficult. I've gone out and spoken to adolescents and young adults about my story,
Mhm.
the signs and symptoms. I spoke with parents, like
Yeah.
what it looks like, or how do you deal with a loved one who may be experiencing severe mental illness, and
Sure.
also just kind of introducing them to someone. Hey, have a conversation like we are now,
Mhm.
and then I spill the beans, right? Tell them, hey, look,
Yeah.
I have all of this. And a lot of times they're shocked. They don't believe me.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't get it. You're so normal. You can juggle so many things. You seem like have a normal lifestyle. And I always tell them, yes, yeah, from the outside I do, but you don't
Mhm.
see me at home. You don't see the struggles I have
Yeah.
daily. You don't see the extra steps it took me to get where I am. It takes me like 3 times more work to be able to do what the average person is doing.
Mhm.
And so I found out about Rotaract because I went to college for the 3rd time, and ended up going for photography. And I chose the best time because it was right before COVID happened.
Yeah.
And so, second semester, I'm going full time. Never thought I'd be able to do school full time because at the time, was never able to hold a full time job. So, full time school was kind of challenging for me. And then lockdown happened, and I'm supposed to be taking pictures of people and,
Yeah.
doing that. So, the program got, paused for momentarily, and I ended up, working on a minor in entrepreneurial business, and it led me down a path of digital marketing, which is really cool. And now, I completed my associate's degree, which I never thought I'd be able to actually get a degree anyway. And now I have an associate's in photography and a minor in entrepreneurial business. And this spring, I am about to graduate with another associate's in digital
Nice.
marketing.
Very
Um,
nice.
and so my last year of college, with COVID happening and things slowly starting to open up, this past year has kind of been really the first year that we've been fully open, right? Things have kind
Mhm.
of gone back to normal. We still have like online programs, like my digital marketing program is strictly just online. But I wanted to get active in school. So I do way too many things now. I'm the campus liaison for the Student Senate.
You keep yourself busy.
I do. Well, I have a saying, I'm too busy to be sad. But yeah, so I do that. One of my friends, really good friends, Alexis, that I met through school, introduced me to Brett, my advisor, and said, hey, look at Rotary. Like, they volunteer, they do a lot. And she knew about my background with pageants. And at
Mhm.
the time, I had just passed my national title, and I was like, I kind of need a break from
Yeah.
pageants. I need a break, kind of figure out what my next steps are, where I want to go. Um, and got introduced to Rotaract, and it was kind of that outlet for me to still have that volunteer outlet
Yeah.
without having to have a title and that
Yeah.
pressure of an added thing while I'm trying to just finish my education.
Mhm.
So I was introduced to that, ended up learning kind of about what the club at the school does. And, I'm the kind of person that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to fully do it. So I was like, you know what, let's just go for it. Let's run for the president position.
Nice.
And I ended up getting
You sound like a lot of Rotarians
Yeah.
that are yeah.
And I've done that with
It's
a
kind
lot
of
of other
innately in
things,
us.
other things on campus. I'm part of the Alumni Foundation board now. I'll be staying on that after I graduate. I'm the president for the Minnesota State Chapter for Business Professionals of America. I'm on the executive board for Pi Theta Kappa, which is our honor roll society. I do social media for them. Also help do some social media at the school. So very,
Wow.
very, very involved. I've always lived a very busy schedule. And so now that pageants weren't a thing, I wasn't having, 10 appearances a week
Yeah.
anymore. I needed to fill my free time with something else. And I ended up really like getting to know Brett and getting to know kind of his passions, and told him about my platform, and he was like super supportive, and I just hit the ground running. And I think this is like the most active our club has actually been at the school. We do a minimum of one volunteer event a month. I
Okay.
mean, even just this past week, Monday I went to the press release of Rotary International being here. Super cool.
Yes.
Got to experience that. Tuesday night, we did a Feed My Starving Children at a mobile pack, which was super cool. It was at a church in Lakeville. And then Wednesday morning, we went to, with Rosemount Rotary, they held kind of an informational session about fentanyl and the experiences that our state is having with it. So, and then now I have this today. So like my whole week has been full of just Rotary events. If that kind
Can
of
be a
gives you a
beautiful thing.
taste of how active we've been as a club.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I got involved in Rotaract. And now, I really enjoy it, and I see it's something that after I graduate, I want to pursue, and I want to get into a Rotary. And once again, I'm going to run for president. So
Edina Morningside is always taking new members.
okay.
In case you were wondering.
But there are many wonderful clubs.
Yes, there are. Yes. And perhaps you choose it based
As long
off
as
the
it's in District
specific
5950.
location. Yeah. So I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
And I'm taking a peek at the time too. So I'm going to be
We're
cognizant
good.
of that.
Yeah.
But first, with pageantry,
Yeah.
there has like my grandmother took me to a lot of pageants in the small town of La Crosse, Wisconsin. Okay. So I'm familiar with what that process looks like. But there, you're being based off of physical appearances and stuff.
Yeah.
For the most part. And then there's other components of it too. There truly are. But there has got to be so much mental health around that, and just challenges that that most of the gals encounter. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that a little bit. Some of the stuff that you've encountered, other individuals who have been a part of the pageants that you've made friends with that have encountered some of these issues as well.
Yeah. So, great question. Thanks for bringing that up. The stigma, once again, stigma
Oh yeah.
about pageantry. So yes, we are, judged. It's a very intimate thing. You're taking yourself, your personality, your life, your mission, and you're laying it out on a table or laying it on a
Yeah.
stage and saying, "Hey, judge me," right? It's very
Yeah.
scary. Not the average person can do that.
Right.
And that's kind of something I've leaned into, especially with the struggles I've had, just self-identity with myself and body issues, and kind of, not thinking I'm pretty enough or not thinking I'm good enough and stuff like that. It was kind of something I leaned into, which was kind of like a physical proof to me, like, hey, obviously I'm beautiful. I have a crown, obviously other
Yeah.
people find me interesting. Other people like me. So it was
Yeah.
kind of that confidence builder, that kind of outward look showed me like, hey, look, like the thoughts that you're having aren't correct about yourself. Um, and it is scary, especially, being a plus size woman in the industry of pageantry. I compete against straight size women. I compete against size 2, and I still even win at the size I'm at. And so something they do, which I think is really cool, that not a lot of people know about, is when they're judging you, right? Like during evening where they're judging you on your looks,
Yeah.
they're really judging, how does that dress fit your body shape? How
Hmm.
does that color complement your skin tone? How does
Mm.
the way your hair styled or the makeup choice that you chose complement you and your features? And so
Okay.
you really need to know your body. You need to really know what looks good on you, what doesn't,
Yeah.
trying out those different things. And so they're really judging you individually based on you, who you are.
Hmm.
And then at the end, they just add up all the numbers.
Okay.
One of the biggest parts of the competition, which a lot of people don't know about, but the number one part is interview.
Mm.
That's usually 50% of the total score, and that's where they really get to know you. It's like a 4-minute thing. Sometimes it's a panel interview. Sometimes it's a table intimate interview. Panels are my favorite, but then I don't have to repeat myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then they're able to answer those intense questions. And especially with me, being in an older age and the kind of platform I have, sometimes that can get really heavy.
Hmm.
And you've got 4 minutes to tell my story. I've got 4
Yeah.
minutes to tell them, why I want this national title and what I'm going to do with it, right? Show
Yeah.
them my business plan for the year, because that's what it really is.
Yeah.
You're given this opportunity. You're really being the face of this organization.
Sure.
What are you going to do with that opportunity? And so a lot of it is more mental and kind of how you hold yourself. Are you confident on stage? Are you giving eye contact? Do you look and feel like someone that's comfortable in their own body?
Hmm.
And so that's kind of been what's helped me gain confidence in myself. And I've had some people say, that's a very superficial way to gain confidence, Natasha. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit,
But
Yeah.
but when I'm having those really hard days and I look up on my bookshelf and I see my crowns up there, it's what
Y-
pushes me
You.
forward.
Yeah.
When I have that dirty sash that's brown now and it's
Yeah.
not white anymore because of all the work I've put into that year,
The.
it's really visible, and the memories. And then I've also, what's really cool about pageantry is it led me down a really cool direction that I never thought I'd ever do. And I was able to walk in New York Fashion Week. And I have actually
Oh
walked
my
in New York
gosh.
Fashion Week 4 separate times.
Mm.
And I was part of the first ever completely plus size fashion show for New York Fashion Week.
Wow.
So once again, able to end those stigmas, break those barriers and
Mhm.
have that kind of crazy experience. Like,
Yeah.
who gets to say that they've, done that? I've had photo shoots in the middle of Times Square at both like noon and 1 a.m. And
Yeah.
having those memories and being able to like show somebody like, hey, look, like this is a picture of me in Times
Yeah.
Square, or this is a picture of me in front of the Empire State Building. And it's just very random, but
The experiences, right? But I
yeah.
I I do just want to point out the fact that like you have those hard days, right? And then you
Mhm.
take a look at the memories that have been created
Yeah.
and all of what has gone into getting to that point,
Literally the
right?
blood, sweat, and tears
Yeah.
and the dedication,
That's
not only
incredible.
to my life, but other people's lives I've done, and my platform and the
Mhm.
passions I have. It's kind of what really fuels me when I'm having those stuff. Of course,
Yeah.
sometimes I need my cat, or
yeah,
Yeah.
somebody else to help remind me of those things. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just kind of nice to have that in the background.
I had another question, but I was so enthralled with the fact that you got to go to New York Fashion Week that
Yeah.
I completely
well,
forgot.
Yeah.
so something I do want to talk about, and this is something that's really interesting, is the more I get to know people,
Mhm.
and the better and the more interesting the person is, the more hell they've been through.
Yeah.
Like
Isn't that
truly, and
weird?
it's like
Mhm.
there's something to, and I've asked myself many times, like, why is that?
Yeah.
And there's something to that wrestling with demons all the time, like with your inner demons or whatever demons in your life that you're going through, and being able to smile on the other end of it and being able
Hmm.
to learn something from it, or to gather whatever you need to keep going and keep pursuing your vision or your goals, is that seems to be kind of the secret sauce of really successful
Well,
people.
ignorance is bliss.
Well, 100%. It goes back to, you gotta struggle in life to
Yeah.
get anywhere. You don't get anywhere by not
Well,
struggling.
and not only
Mm.
that, but it creates resilience, right? I'm
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to hear the word no. I've been on stage and never got picked for anything.
Yeah.
I've gone through these things. I've put myself through these troubles, and also I've had experienced, multiple different things that have happened to me where people are like, I can't believe that's happened to you. I'm a person of sexual assault, and it's happened more than once. Things like that where it's trying to take a bad situation that's happened in your life or something like that, and trying to find the silver lining, right? Trying to find the good that can come out of that. And I really feel like it just kind of, I don't want to say builds character, but it creates that resiliency, and it kind of creates you to be able to be more compassionate with others, right? Because I understand. I understand what someone might be feeling, or I understand what that situation is like. I'm able to connect more with that person. I'm able to make more deeper connections, more impactful, meaningful connections with someone.
Compassion was the word that came to my mind too. So I'm
Which
glad
is
you said
important
that.
in this world, because we're so involved in our own technology and our own lives that sometimes we forget that other people exist, and they also have feelings, and they also experience things that we don't know about in our daily lives, and they also might be having a hard time, but we don't see that because it's private and it's behind closed doors.
Well, and it's also probably core to why you serve.
Exactly.
Yeah. So to kind of bring it full circle for the show and for, what this show is all about. And it was a really wonderful interview. And thank you so much for
I want to ask
sharing.
one more.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Well, we breezed past that. Talk to people and share how they can help people in their lives or resources. So I would say, what would you say to the audience, or whether they have somebody in their family, whether they're going through things, is there resources, or, I know you just briefly breezed over it, but I'd like to lead on
So
that.
there's actually a lot of resources out there, and then within the last 10 years, right, even 15 years, it's gotten a lot better. There's the 988 hotline, that not only Minnesota but nationally we have now, which is kind of the new 911, right? If you yourself are experiencing a mental health crisis, or somebody that is experiencing a mental health crisis, you can call and text that number. Someone will respond, and people are concerned, well, what qualifies as a mental health crisis, right? It doesn't have to be super severe. No, you don't have to be on the verge of about to commit suicide. It could even just be depressed, sad, not wanting to continue with life, not feeling the motivation anymore. So that's a nice resource. We also have a lot of really good programs here, like NAMI, or American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. They do a lot in the community, just to help raise awareness. There's a really cool event that I like to go to. It's called Out of the Darkness Walk. Happens in September every year, around Como Park, and they just help fundraise money, kind of
I've
gain
heard of that,
awareness.
yeah.
And they do a nice walk around a lake, and it's really cool because they hand out beads based on like your story, right? And so it's a way to see other people without talking to them, but see how they're associated. Some people, it's I've just lost a friend, or I myself have attempted, and it's just really nice. They also have a lot of support groups around, and then I know in like our counties, I know Dakota County just had a really big deal with that. They're really putting in a lot of money on mental health crisis. Dakota County specifically, I just know more about it because that's where I live. They have a mental health crisis team, where you can call someone and they can come out to your house, no questions asked, no fee or anything, and have that immediate help. They also can do it over the phone, and I've taken advantage of that. I've had someone come to my house before. I've called somebody on the phone and worked through a problem, and they've been that person that's kind of helped me get back to zero, right? On whatever extreme I'm at. And it's kind of nice to have a professional come in, and as much as I appreciate the police and everything, sometimes they're not properly trained, or they don't know how to handle that situation.
Yeah.
Another thing you can individually do is they have some trainings, right? One of the trainings I went through is called mental health first aid. It's an Australian thing that they're trying to bring to America, so it's very vastly new. And I've been certified for a year. It lasts for 3 years. But it kind of goes talking about like what are the signs of seeing someone who's having a mental health crisis? What do you do, right? Kind of informing people that don't be afraid to ask somebody, look at them in the face and say, "Are you thinking of killing yourself?" Because there's a very big stigma against that, saying that if you mention suicide to somebody or you ask them those questions, they're more likely to die by suicide, which is not true. A lot of times they're actually very thankful that you asked them that question, and they'll break down crying, and finally someone notices, right? Finally someone sees the pain I'm experiencing. So I just recommend doing that, and just check in, look for those signs. Is someone giving away their things that you're kind of like, this is very personal to you. Why are you all of a sudden not caring? Or they're not caring about school, or they're kind of, they lost their job and they're not really, caring about those things in their life. So you just need to pay attention to the really little details and have those intense conversations. Don't be afraid to say the word suicide. So
I wish we had another hour.
I know. Well,
I'd always love to come back. If you ever wanted,
you're more than welcome to
talk.
come back. Natasha, I just want to take a moment to thank you, because it's very big and bold of you to come on here. And, we didn't even really go into Rotaract and what you do with them, but I think more importantly, your passion about mental health, that I'm glad it was our focus. So thank you.
Yeah. And I'm really excited for my future. I'm really excited to get into Rotary, and maybe in a couple of years I can come back and talk about all the cool things I've been doing for Rotary in the state of Minnesota.
That
I'll
sounds
put
wonderful.
Some of the resources in the description, so if anybody's looking for more,
and I can always send you some, via email or whatever links and stuff that you need. So
sounds
beautiful.
Good. Well, as a reminder, you are listening to Searching for Service. I'm Kelly Kirk.
I'm Joe Kirk.
And I'm Chad Larson. We'll be back.
Hello and welcome back to Searching for Service, brought to you by Rotary District 5950. I'm Kelly Kirk.
I'm Joe Kirk.
And I'm Chad Larson.
That was an incredible interview.
Tough
topic.
Tough topic.
Very brave and bold. And
yeah, we really want to thank Natasha for being willing to speak. And obviously she has a background in speaking about it. But
well, and I don't know about you. I mean, I'm sure that we all identify it on some level.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Maybe not the same level as she does, but on some level we identify with it.
Whether it's mental health and, the different components of that, or it's anxiety or just kind of stepping up.
But I mean, think about all the stuff that she accomplished in spite of that.
Yes.
So that just shows you
and
all
continues
out there.
To. So it was really
Work
great.
your gifts.
Yes. Really great to have Natasha on, and we appreciate her kind of stepping into the, this realm of podcasting with us and speaking on behalf of it. So
absolutely.
Well, thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in and listening to Natasha. I'm your host, Kelly Kirk.
I'm Joe Kirk.
I'm Chad Larson.
As a reminder, it's time to stop searching
and start serving.
We'll see you next week.
Can't wait.